So here is the long-awaited part 2 video for Crabby questions. The summer is creeping in, so with that comes the seasonal job swap and many tasks. P.S. I am also at my summer job already, so I haven't found the best recording option or area yet, so apologies if the sound is a bit fuzzy. There's refrigerators, and the wind is really whistling outside. All that stated, let's get to the video. In this video, I will briefly cover personal use and subsistence crab fishing equipment, the process, catch identification, regulations, and sources. There are variations in some of what I mention here about how to pot fish, but most of what I mention follows the same concepts, equipment, and the steps, so they don't deviate too far from this example. I also list resources and species identification regulations, like current studies and management information, which is also listed in the description down below. If you've been enjoying my videos that include, but are not limited to, cooking and harvesting food, art projects, history, civilian science, and some cool wilderness stuff tucked on in there, then maybe consider hitting the subscribe button. If you like this video, then please hit the old thumb button as well. Thank you for watching. Now here's Crabby Questions Part 2. To briefly cover personal use or subsistence, subsistence is supporting oneself at a minimum level, so in Alaska there are opportunities for subsistence harvests of several species, including crab. Subsistence harvests are done to feed households and communities. They're not for the grocery store or the supermarket shelves. And it's a pretty cool thing, and I hope we all get to continue doing it. And I think learning about it is the way to do it. So here's some learning, I guess. When considering a wild harvest or forage, there's a bit of research and regulation, most likely, that you'll need to follow in order to be responsible for a proper harvest. And so there's probably going to be some local regulations that you need to look into. Harvesting responsibly means that you're going to include and implement techniques and knowledge that help sustain the continuance of whatever you're harvesting. We should always do it responsibly. So if you're harvesting fiddlehead ferns or morel mushrooms, we take some and leave most. If we harvest all of the first ferns off the plant, it has the potential of stunting or not allowing the plant to breathe. If we pick every mushroom, then there's less spores to spread throughout the area for even greater or possibly just the continuance of mushrooms in the area in the future. The same concept should be applied for how we harvest crab. The size, sex, and species are just a few ways crab are distinguished in regards to what we can and or should eat or keep. A little bit of care can go a long way in a forage or harvest. Even when regulations are in place, some accountability and care are absolutely necessary for the continued harvest of amazing food like Alaskan crab. Now, let's get into what we need in order to do that. Standard equipment for pot fishing for crab includes a boat, pulley, gaff, rope, a crab pot, bait, and a buoy. Almost all of these individual items have their own regulations, so those always need to be looked up before going fishing for crab. The process for crab pot fishing starts with checking the pots. You need to check for holes and for proper escape capabilities. The pot is then baited to bring in the foraging crustaceans, and it's usually herring chopped up and put into bait cups. The pot is then attached to a long enough rope to allow the pot to sit on the ocean floor, and these pots were dropped about 300 feet, and a buoy is then attached to the surface end of the rope, and the buoy is not only a place marker to find the pot in a few days, but also for identification of the fishermen. After the several days soak on the ocean floor, you take the boat out and search for the buoy. The gaff hook is then used to grab the rope directly under the buoy. The buoy is brought into the boat and some access line pulled in to both wrap around the two-stroke motor and to place into the pulley. When the pot gets to the surface, the pot is then lifted, or some people have a swing bar to bring the pot onto the deck. And the crab inside are then sorted by size, harvest limit, species, and sex. A quick checklist for a legal pot is going to be correctly sized escape rings in the proper locations, as well as a proper biodegradable escape mechanism, which is shown with a red line in this image, which is usually rotten cotton. The escape rings are for crabs that are too small to be in the pot, and the biodegradable escape mechanism is used. It allows the shellfish to escape if pots are lost or left unattended. A properly marked buoy is also going to be on the list. You're gonna need a fisherman's first initial and last name, home address, and a DMV issued Alaska vessel or name. In my first crab video, I go over some of the more common or popular crab species found and fished for in Alaska, so please refer to that video for more specific crabby distinctions if you're interested. But for this video, I just wanted to mention some of the differences between the sexes. All crabs molt, but crab species and sexes tend to have variances in molt frequency or the total amount of molts that they have within their lifetime. The main method in telling the sexes apart in crab is on their underside of their carapace. They have different shaped abdominal flaps. On the male, it's way more pointed, and on the female, it's much wider. After the frequent molting of their carapace when crabs are younger in their juvenile years, the molts tend to slow down in frequency. Some stop molting altogether, like the female tanner crab. Female tanner crabs reach a maturity molt around age 5, so they release a pheromone into the water and attract the males, and then the males are able to find them and mate with these softer shell females. And then
they can breed once a female has a hard shell, but they can also use previously stored sperm from their first maturity molt. So if there's no males around, they can still produce from that first encounter, I guess. The female tanner crabs stay the same size after their final maturity molt, whereas female king crabs molt yearly for breeding. The adult male king crab may skip 1 or 2 years as they start getting older, but the females tend to be in a softer state in order to do breed when it comes to the king crab. So all crabs are different. So to round out this video, I'm just going to list a few of my sources where I got a lot of this information. Naturebob.com and the article written by Aaron Baldwin and Paul Norwood is such an incredible source when it comes to titled anything in Alaska. NOAA is going to be an incredible resource when it comes to new studies or research, or where Alaska Fish and Game is getting their information to set regulations. And then you need to check Alaska Fish and Game for regulations. So all of those are updated frequently and are extremely important, and surveys are also very important when it comes to resources like this. So thank you for tuning into this video. I hope this answered some of the questions that I left open-ended, and I hope y'all have a good one. Stay inspired.